A sudden legal move has triggered a wave of shock across the American legal and political landscape. What seemed like a routine procedural step quickly escalated into something far more serious, an emergency court intervention that has now changed the direction of an already high-stakes legal battle. Behind the scenes, tensions had been building for weeks. Legal filings were increasing. Arguments were intensifying. Both sides were preparing for a confrontation that many insiders believed was inevitable, but few expected the situation to escalate this quickly or this dramatically. The turning point came when a strategic legal maneuver was introduced, one that on the surface appeared technical and procedural. But timing in the legal world is never accidental. Every motion, every filing, every request is placed carefully within a larger strategic framework, and this particular move arrived at a moment when the stakes were already extremely high. Legal observers immediately recognized that this was not just about procedure, it was about positioning, about influence, about control over how the legal process itself would unfold. And when a filing attempts to reshape the structure of a case rather than simply respond to it, courts pay very close attention. Within hours, the response came. The court issued an emergency directive, swift, direct, and unmistakably firm. The message was clear. The judicial process would not be disrupted, delayed, or strategically redirected without scrutiny. Compliance was required, timelines were enforced, and the path forward was firmly established under the court's authority. Emergency judicial intervention is not routine. Courts are designed to operate deliberately, methodically, and with careful consideration. But when urgency appears to threaten the integrity of the process, judges have the power to act immediately. That authority exists to preserve fairness, maintain order, and protect the court's control over proceedings. Legal analysts quickly began asking why the court moved so fast. Some point to the need to protect procedural integrity, ensuring that no party gains advantage through timing or technical maneuvering. Others suggest the court was acting to prevent potential delay strategies that could shift leverage in the case. And many believe the most important factor was institutional authority, the court asserting control over its own jurisdiction. When judicial authority is perceived to be challenged, courts respond decisively, and that decisiveness was clearly visible here. Observers have described the triggering move as highly calculated. In complex legal conflicts, actions are rarely impulsive, strategies are layered, objectives are long-term. Sometimes the goal is victory, sometimes it is delay, sometimes it is negotiation leverage, and sometimes the goal is simply to change the environment in which the legal battle takes place. But strategic action carries risk. When a court interprets a move as an attempt to reshape process rather than follow it, judicial intervention becomes far more likely. That's exactly what unfolded in this case. Reaction across the legal community was immediate and intense. Some experts praised the court's rapid response, arguing that swift action preserves fairness and prevents procedural manipulation. Others expressed caution, noting that emergency judicial authority must always be exercised carefully because every such decision influences future legal expectations. Meanwhile, media attention surged almost instantly. Legal commentators began dissecting every detail. Analysts debated whether the intervention was preventative, corrective, or signaling deeper concern within the judiciary. Public interest grew rapidly because when courts act urgently, it suggests that something significant is at stake. And that leads to the larger question: what happens now? Emergency rulings rarely end legal battles. Instead, they reshape them. They alter momentum. They redefine timelines. They change negotiation dynamics. In complex cases, that kind of shift can influence everything that follows. Attention now turns to the next stage of proceedings. Will additional legal maneuvers emerge? Will strategic positioning intensify? Will judicial oversight expand further? Each development will provide new clues about where this conflict is ultimately heading. What makes this moment particularly important is not just the decision itself, but what it represents. It demonstrates how strategy, timing, and judicial authority intersect in high-stakes legal environments. It shows how quickly procedural disputes can transform into institutional confrontations, and it reminds everyone involved that while legal strategy can shape the battlefield, the court ultimately controls the rules of engagement. This situation will likely be studied long after the immediate headlines fade, not simply as a moment of legal tension, but as an example of how power, process, and authority interact within the American judicial system. For now, the legal battle continues, but under new conditions, new pressures, and heightened scrutiny. And as the case moves forward, one thing remains absolutely clear. In the American legal system, strategy matters, timing matters, but in the end, the court decides how far either one can go. And in this moment, the court made that power unmistakably clear. More developments are expected, and when they come, they could reshape everything once again.